Let's be real. Who hasn't fantasized about that perfect movie-style romance? You know the one, where it's you and your person against the world, ready to laugh, cry, and just cuddle up after a ridiculously long day. But what happens when real life crashes the party? Okay, so let's get into it. On one side, you've got the dream team, Jim and Pam from The Office. Total trust, they support each other, they're best friends. That's the goal, right? But then, sometimes things can start looking a little more like Ryan and Kelly. You know, a bit dysfunctional, kind of toxic, even when you don't mean for them to be. And here's the tricky part. These destructive habits can sneak into any relationship, sometimes without us even noticing. So, just for a second, which one of these feels a little more familiar in the day-to-day? Because today, we're going to break down 4 super common behaviors that can quietly poison a relationship, and, more importantly, what you can actually do about them. First up is something that sounds so small, but man, it has a huge impact: the missing apology. This is when one of you hurts the other. Maybe a joke lands wrong or a criticism just cuts way too deep. And that simple, crucial, "I'm sorry," just never shows up. We're going to call this apology avoidance. It's that failure, whether you meant to or not, to actually own up to the hurt you've caused. And what it does is create this little crack between you that just gets wider and wider if you don't deal with it. Now, you might think not apologizing is all about ego or pride. But what's really interesting is that a lot of the time, this stuff is actually rooted in fear. It's the fear of admitting we messed up, the fear of feeling like we're not good enough, or just the fear of having to sit with that yucky feeling of guilt. But here's the thing. The research is crystal clear on this. A 2017 study found that when you offer a sincere apology, forgiveness becomes way, way more likely. And why is that? Well, because it brings back a sense of respect and fairness, and that totally dials down the anger. So yeah, that one little word has the power to diffuse a huge amount of tension. And hey, what if saying it out loud feels almost impossible? Try writing it down. And I'm not talking about a quick, sorry, text message. A real, heartfelt note left on the counter can be just as powerful. It shows you actually took the time to think about their feelings and your part in it. All right, let's shift gears to our second behavior, unhealthy attachment. There is such a fine line between being wonderfully close and becoming so tangled up that you actually start to lose who you are. You know, there's this really beautiful kind of romantic ancient Greek myth. It says humans were originally created with 4 arms and 4 legs, but Zeus got scared of their power, so he split them in 2. And the story goes that we spend the rest of our lives looking for our other half. It's a sweet idea, but it can also set us up for a pretty dangerous way of thinking. And this is exactly where we get into the idea of emotional dependency. It's when that search to be made whole makes you lose your own identity. You start leaning on your partner for all of your emotional comfort, all your validation, and you kind of forget how to do that for yourself. So what does this actually look like? Well, you might start ditching your friends, spending every single second with your partner, and you find you can't calm yourself down without them. And get this, a 2018 study actually found a link between this behavior and childhood trauma. It suggests that our early experiences can really shape how we attach to people as adults. If you feel like you literally don't know who you are without them, that's a huge red flag. Okay, on to behavior number 3. Oh boy, this one is so common, and it causes so much unnecessary drama. Expecting your partner to be a mind reader. Think of it this way. Your partner's crystal ball is broken. And guess what? So is yours. Expecting them to just know what you're thinking or what you're feeling is basically setting both of you up to fail. All the research from relationship experts shows that clear, direct communication is like the absolute foundation of a healthy relationship. Let's look at a classic example here. Your partner comes home and they're super quiet. What's the first place your brain goes? Oh, they're mad at me. You might even say something like, "So you're just not going to talk to me now?" But the reality, they could be completely wiped out from a 12-hour shift and just need a minute to breathe. See how that assumption just blew things up for no reason? The fix here is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, just stop assuming. Step 2, ask a simple question. Something like, "Hey, you seem quiet. Everything okay?" can stop a massive fight before it even starts. And step 3, talk about your own needs. It's got to be a two-way street. And that leads us right into our 4th and final behavior that can really poison a relationship: the micromanager.
This one tends to pop up when a couple starts spending a lot more time together, or especially when they move in together. So, micromanaging is when you try to control every tiny part of your partner's life. You know, how they load the dishwasher, the way they fold the towels, what they wear. You start noticing all these little things that drive you nuts, and you try to correct them.
I love this quote from clinical psychologist Karen Nemo because it just hits the nail on the head. She says micromanagers have these incredibly high standards, so they just can't trust their partner to do things the right way, which of course is their way. At its core, it's a trust issue. And just think for a second about how this feels for the person on the other side of it. They start to feel incompetent, they get resentful, and they feel super anxious. They're constantly walking on eggshells, just worried about doing the next thing wrong. It's an incredibly draining way to live.
And this is really important. If you recognize this behavior in yourself, it could actually be a sign of underlying anxiety or even something like OCD. This isn't just some personality quirk. It might be something that requires reaching out to a mental health professional to really get a handle on.
So there you have it, 4 really common and yeah, pretty destructive behaviors. The biggest thing to take away here is that awareness is everything. From not saying sorry to micromanaging, just being able to name these patterns is the first and honestly the most powerful step you can take to change them. And that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. Now that you can spot them, which one of these behaviors are you going to make a conscious effort to work on first? Because building that Jim and Pam kind of love, it's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to fix the things that aren't.